the game behind the curtain. For years, Europe believed the great storms of history had passed, that wars of conquest were relics of the 20th century, that borders, once drawn, would remain untouched. But then came Vladimir Putin. With a single move, the annexation of Crimea, he reminded the world that history is never finished. With the war in Ukraine, he proved that ambition and power still speak louder than treaties and promises. Yet behind every tank, every missile, lies something larger, a vision not only for Russia, but for Europe. And for the United States. Tonight, we enter that vision. We unravel the strategy, the chaos, and the consequences of Putin's grand design. From the gas lines of Germany, to the parliaments of Europe, to the heart of Washington, D.C., this is the story of a man trying to remake the world order. And the question of whether America can still hold it together. Putin's vision, the grand chessboard. Putin sees himself not merely as a politician, but as a player in history's eternal chess match. Where others see borders, he sees pressure points. Where others see peace, he sees opportunity. For him, Europe is not a neighbor. It is a battlefield of energy, of ideology, of trust. His first goal, divide Europe, exploit the fault lines between East and West, feed on the fears of the Baltics, the caution of Germany. The weariness of Italy, his second goal, weaken NATO. Because a fractured alliance is no alliance at all, and his ultimate goal, force America to bleed resources and credibility until Washington's leadership no longer feels inevitable. In Putin's mind, wars are not won with weapons alone. They are won with patience, with energy pipelines, propaganda, and political puppets. His genius is not in creating power, but in exploiting weakness. The Ukraine war, fire on the frontier. Ukraine is not just a neighbor, it is a symbol. For Putin, it is the last barrier between Russia and the Western world. For the West, it is the front line of freedom itself. The war is brutal, yes, but beyond the bloodshed lies a greater struggle. Every missile strike is aimed not only at Kyiv, but at the confidence of Europe. Every battlefield stalemate is a test of America's resolve. Putin knows he cannot outgun NATO, but he can outlast it. He can drag the war in 2 years, into decades if needed, until Europe grows weary and America looks away. For the United States, Ukraine is both a necessity and a trap. A necessity because if Russia swallows Ukraine, the credibility of NATO collapses. But a trap because every dollar spent, every weapon shipped, is Washington deeper into a war that was never its own. Ukraine, in essence, has become the fuse to a much larger powder keg, the fate of the Western order itself. Europe in crisis, security, energy, and politics. When Putin turns the valve of a gas pipeline, all of Europe shivers. The Baltic states fear invasion. Poland rearms at a scale unseen since the Cold War. Meanwhile, Germany, Italy, and France argue endlessly over sanctions, terrified of crippling their economies. And then came the energy shock, with Russia choking supply, gas prices soared 5-fold, electricity tripled, factories shut down, and citizens marched in the streets, demanding relief. The crisis exposed Europe's deepest weakness, dependency on Russian energy. Dependency on American protection, dependency on fragile political unity. Populist parties surged across the continent, from Marine Le Pen in France to Viktor. In Hungary, politicians sympathetic to Moscow found fertile ground. They didn't need to win everywhere. They only needed to slow the EU's resolve, to fracture the image of unity. Putin's greatest weapon was never just the tank. It was the seed of doubt planted in the minds of Europeans. Is Russia truly our enemy, or are our leaders leading us astray? America in the crossfire, burden of leadership for the United States. Europe has always been more than geography. It is the stage on which America proves its leadership to the world. But now the burden grows heavier. Billions in aid flow to Ukraine, depleting American stockpiles. NATO relies on Washington's military might more than ever. And yet, at home, political voices grow louder. Why must Americans pay for Europe's wars? The divide runs deep. Democrats largely defend the aid. Republicans fracture, some calling for continued support, others demanding America turn inward. Every vote in Congress becomes more than policy, it becomes a test of America's credibility. Each delay, each debate whispers to Europe, what if America leaves us? Meanwhile, across the Pacific, China rises. Taiwan looms. The South China Sea bristles with tension, and Washington faces the impossible question, can it fight two great powers at once? This is the trap Putin dreamed of. America stretched thin, divided at home, doubted abroad, future scenarios. Where do we go from here? History never moves in straight lines. From this storm, three possible futures emerge. Scenario 1, a united West. Europe strengthens its armies, breaks free of Russian energy, and NATO expands. America proves steadfast. Together, the West isolates Russia and reaffirms a world order under Washington's lead. Scenario 2, a fractured West. Populists rise in Europe. America turns inward. Aid to Ukraine dries up. NATO falters and Russia regains influence. Putin doesn't need to conquer all, only to divide enough. Scenario 3, a multipolar chaos. No one fully wins. Russia holds ground but cannot expand. America remains powerful but overstretched. Europe wavers between unity and disunity, and China steps in to exploit the vacuum. The world becomes a crowded chessboard with no clear king, only endless rivalry. Which future will unfold depends on four questions. Will the war in Ukraine end or drag on? Will America overcome its own political fractures? Can Europe become truly self-reliant? And how far will the Russia-China partnership go? The age of storms. Whatever the outcome, one truth is clear. Putin has already changed the world. He forced Europe to confront its vulnerabilities. He forced America to test the weight of its leadership. And he forced the world to awaken from the illusion of permanent peace. History will remember Putin not for what he built, but for what he shattered. But the future does not belong to him alone. It belongs to all of us, to the choices nations make, to the courage leaders find, to the will of people who refuse to be ruled by fear. So the question is no longer, what does Putin want? The question is, what will humanity choose in the age of storms? If this story opened your eyes, don't let it end here. Subscribe for more deep dives into the world's biggest power struggles. Share this video to spark the conversation and tell us in the comments, do you believe the West will hold together, or are we entering a new age of division? Your voice matters because history is still being written right now.